Likutei Sichos, Chelek Chafei, volume 25, the second Sicha for Parshas Bereishis. This Sicha will explain the special disposition of one who was born on a Thursday and the connection to the unique disposition of fish and a lesson, a directive for our generation in particular. As a quick introduction, in Maseches Shabbos in the Gemara, it enumerates various attributes and predispositions associated with the various days of the week. Meaning, one who's born on a Sunday, on a Monday, and a Tuesday. This Sikha will focus on what the Gemara says about one who was born on a Thursday. Another thing to be familiar with, the concept of bitul. Literally, it means like self-nullification, which means to be totally void of one's own arrogance, of one's feeling of self, and have a total devotion or subservience, in this case, of course, to Hashem. Let's go into the Sikha. So the Gemara in Maseches Shabbos says, one who was born on the Thursday, on the fifth day of the week, he will be a person, have a disposition that is, of goimel chasodim, somebody who does loving kindness. What is the reason, says the Gemara? Because fish and birds were created on this day, on the fifth day of creation. Now Rashi comments, in other words, what is the reason for this? What is the connection? Says Rashi, because fish and birds typically do not have to trouble themselves, do not have to work hard to secure their sustenance, their food. Rather, they are fed bechazdoi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, directly by the kindness of Hashem. That means it's readily available for them. It's almost like given to them. Now, says the Rebbe, we need to understand, we need to reconcile this with what's written in Gemara elsewhere, in Gemara Maseches Yevamos. Over there it says that there are three cardinal signs, inherent signs of every single Yid. In other words, these are the three virtues that is instilled and embedded in every single Yid. That is Rachmanim, Baishanim, compassionate ones, Baishanim, people who have inherent busha, which means they have inherent humility, and most importantly, the last one, goimlei chasadim, that they do loving kindness. So the question is, this is telling us that every single Yid has the virtue of embedded and virtue by nature, that is embedded kindness. If that's the case, what is the difference? What is, so to speak, the preeminence, the advantage of one who is born particularly on a Thursday? If every single Yid already possesses this special virtue, this special quality. The answer lies, says the Rebbe, in the commentary of Rashi. When Rashi says that they are nizoinim, that they get fed bechazdei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by the chesed, by the kindness of Hashem, which means that what makes Thursday so special, what is the advantage of Thursday? That the chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which means if Hashem is himself infinite, Hashem is obviously the ultimate level of infinity. Thus, it has to be that all his attributes, including this attribute of chesed, is also infinite. And where do we see, so to speak, a reflection of this? In the fact that the fish, dugim, their reproduction, their level and process of reproduction is in such a manner that it almost seems infinite versus all other creatures, all other of Hashem's creations. As we see also in the expression of the blessing, which we'll focus on a little later, it says, V'yidgu l'roi b'kerev haaretz. When Yaakov Avinu wanted to give the bracha to Yosef's children, that they should multiply on a very, very high level, he used the word v'yidgu, that they should be like fish. V'yidgu l'roi, they shall multiply plentifulness, in a plentifulness manner in the earth. And he used the expression of fish. So fish, the way they multiply is also almost in a manner of infinity. So what does this mean, basically? That the typical nature of every Yid indeed is to do chesed. We have it embedded in us. This is something innate in every single Jew. However, the chesed that every single Jew has embedded in them is a somewhat of a finite chesed. Meaning it's good, it's fantastic, however it has a limit. meaning it goes to the degree that the person feels comfortable, meaning it does not compel the person to bend, so to speak, on their own needs, to encroach on their own comfort in order to do chesed for others. However, this chesed of one who is born on a Thursday, says the Rebbe, is a chesed that really reaches the levels, because it's like the chesed of Hashem, it reaches the levels of infinity. That means that a person is even ready to forego his own comfort, his own private needs, in order to do chesed for another, which basically means mesiras nefesh, to do chesed. Now, what is the true kli? How does one become a conduit for this type of chesed of Hashem? That is through bitul. And this meaning, as long as a person, so to speak, feels and senses and is comfortable with their own mitzias, meaning their own existence, meaning that they fully exist in themselves, then it's not possible for a person to have unlimited or infinite chesed. Rather, when a person has total bitul, meaning the ani, the I, gets nullified, and therefore he is totally subservient to Hashem, then he's able to connect to this infinite, to the unlimited chesed of Hashem. And we actually see this reflected in the fish. Where do we see this idea of bitul reflected in the nature of fish, in their existence? Fish are totally covered by water, to the extent that it almost seems that their own existence doesn't even protrude, doesn't even seem to show itself. When you look at water, you don't see the fish typically. You see water. They don't have their own, so to speak, separate identity. And the Gemara says actually that as a result of this, because water covers over them, therefore no ayin hara, no evil eye could affect them. In fact, says the Rebbe says perhaps we can suggest, via shloimar, that not only is it a result of the fact that they're covered by water, that no ayin hara means it eliminates the negative, that no ayin hara can affect them, but moreover that there's also a positive effect of this, that because they are covered up by water, therefore they're greater receptacles, so to speak, for Hashem's brachas. That means not only ayin hara doesn't affect them, but because they are covered by water, they now also receive more of Hashem's blessings, and this is a reason for why they multiply at such rates, which seem to be infinite compared to all the other creatures. What is the idea of this? What is the explanation? You see, water is actually the source of life of fish. Meaning, it's not that the fish happen to live in water, but the water inherently is their life. It's not just another add-on to them, but rather this is their essence. To the extent that we find, this as an example that I'll give, in halacha we find that once you take a fish out of water, halachically it's considered dead. It means it doesn't require any other means of taking its life, quote unquote, such as shchita or whatever it may be. Because inherently, the moment it's not in the water, it's no longer in its source of life, it's dead. This tells us that the aspect of bitul that there is in a fish is not just like an add-on to the fish, but this is their entire existence. This is their life. And likewise, we can find this idea by each and every person, even one who wasn't, quote unquote, born on a Thursday. The idea that if one, in their avodas Hashem, if one wants to reach the highest levels of gemilus chasadim, like we said, chesed beli hagbala, unlimited, unabated, infinite chesed, person has to develop a stronger bitul to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is in fact what Rashi means. If you look in Chumash Devarim Parshas Re'eh, where it says that uvoisid bokum, that Hashem says that you're supposed to cleave to Hashem. And Rashi says, what does that mean? Rashi comments, hadbek b'drachav, that you should cleave to his ways, that you should be, for example, goyim b'chasadim, just like Hashem did. And the question is, how can a Yid connect himself to Hashem and do like Hashem did? But the answer is that if a person, and this is the meaning of what Rashi says, and this is what the Rebbe is saying here, that when a person cleaves to Hashem, that means becomes totally bottled to Hashem, and is not separate in any way, not even in their mind, in their own existence, in their own yeshus, but rather they're totally subservient to Hashem, then they're automatically, this translates into them now having the chesed of Hashem, which is, like we said, meaning a chesed of beli gvul, without any limitations whatsoever. Quote, like Hashem did. This all, says the Rebbe, as a means of directive and lesson for us, this all has a special connection to our generation. This special and unique quality of fish has a special connection to Yosef in particular. Where do we find this? As we mentioned earlier in the Sikha, when Yaakov Avinu wanted to bench the children of Yosef, when he wanted to bless them, what did he say? V'yidgu l'roi b'kerev haaretz. That they should multiply v'yidgu, like fish in the earth. Meaning, they should have the same inherent qualities of fish. In fact, the Gemara tells us that as a result of this blessing, the Bnei Yosef, the descendants of Yosef, says the Gemara, Ein ayin hara shalatus b'zara shel Yosef. That ayin hara does not have an effect on the descendants of Yosef. So you see they have the inherent qualities of fish. Now says the Rebbe, our generation, meaning the Rebbe is referring to the previous Rebbe, our generation, the leader of our generation, his first name was Yosef, the Frierdiker Rebbe, Yosef Yitzchak. And we see it also in his approach and his conduct to the way he conducted himself and the way he spread Chassidus and the teachings of the Torah. That it was in a manner of v'yidgu l'roi b'kerev haaretz, that he spread without any limits nor bounds when it came to spreading the wellsprings of Chassidus in every single place, in every single continent, to the extent that even to the lowest point of this world, tachtoin she'ein tachtoin himenu, that there is no other lower place than that. And yet, the Frierdiker Rebbe did it without any apprehension, without any limitations, and in a manner that he was not, quote-unquote, afraid of any evil eye, meaning of any scrutiny, of any negative views from the outside world, in like what would people say and how they would react. This did not in any way deter him whatsoever. And he forged ahead in spreading Chassidus all over. Says the Rebbe, this is the directive, this is the lesson for our generation especially, that we have to behave in this manner, to be totally bottled and to constantly, continuously, like fish, spread Chassidus all over the world, and this will certainly bring to the ultimate blessing. And not only we're not affected by ayin hara, but rather, like we said in the beginning, this will be the positive result, is to receive Hashem's blessings, the ultimate blessing of the Geula Shlema B'Karev.